Daily Dose of Daryl entitled Quilting. Quilting has always been a fascinating subject to me. These quilts were actually quite old. In fact, they date back to the turn of the century. No, the other century. The late 1800s to the early 1900s. And we're in the what? We're over in the 20s now. So, as you look at them, they're pieces that are not the same. They're almost like leftovers, and the master quilter puts them together in such a way that from the bottom you really can't tell what's happening. You see some stitches, but you don't know how the end result will be. But the good thing is that the master quilter knows how it's coming together. And it makes a variety of different patterns and colors, and it's done with material, leftovers and scraps, things that could have been thrown away. And so it's amazing to see how that takes place when you know what you're doing. These particular quilts were made by a family member, Mary Burton, who was born in 1870. And you can tell that is a long time ago, but back then they were still doing these things. The poem says, I think God is a quilter. I think God is a quilter who takes his needle and thread to piece our world from nothingness and give it form instead. I think God is a quilter, and everything I see are pieces from his careful hand from tree to bumblebee. I think we see God's stitches, his texture everywhere, the velvet moss, the grainy sand, the silky strands of hair. I think God is a quilter stitching tight and tiny rows, adding to my scraps and pieces, seeming everything he knows. I think he cuts the pattern from what I'd throw away. He shows me how to use each scrap in his redeeming way. I think God quilts a pattern from everything I live, but he can only stitch the quilt from what I choose to give. I think God is a quilter stitching strength where I am weak, showing me that life he touches embraces everything I seek. I think God is a quilter from the patience in each thread, proving length of time no barrier, treating time a gift instead. I think quilts are lessons God uses just to teach that our pieces and our remnants have kaleidoscopic reach. So, in the life I'm living with pieces everywhere, I'll give them to the quilter to stitch with loving care. I'll give them to the quilter, unwanted though they be, and with his work of quilting, he'll make a quilt of me. And so this poem really brings it together and summarizes the fact that our life is full of a variety of pieces. Some of them are torn and tattered. Some have been tossed on the scrap heap and rejected by others. And yet God is willing to take all those pieces and make something beautiful. It's the same way with leftovers of food. You can just snatch them and grab them, but you can start putting them together in such a way that the different colors and the patterns and the textures make something beautiful and inviting and appetizing to eat. Same thing with desserts. A few nuts here, a piece of candy, some ice cream, different types of cake, but God blends it together as well as a good cook. So this daily dose of Daryl, entitled Quilting, is a reminder to us that quilting from the 1800s reminds us of God's work from our beginning. God can make something beautiful out of anything. Turn over the pieces of your life to God and be amazed. And I know God will bless you. And be that type person with others and don't reject their pieces of life. God bless you.